Hey everyone, welcome back to our homeroom. I hope you're doing well. I am really excited about this episode because I'm going to talk about something I'm really passionate about, which is why authoritarianism doesn't work anymore. I spoke a little bit about it last week in my podcast about school behavior, and I spoke about how students nowadays, we're seeing a lot of misbehavior in the classroom, and that is because the school system is still trying to use a lot of authoritarianism to manage students. And in my opinion, children nowadays, they just don't respond to that anymore. I went into why that is and what we should be doing differently. And what I want to talk about this week is that authoritarianism isn't just a problem in our schools, it is a problem everywhere, and that we are at a phase in human evolution, whatever you want to call it, where we need to change how we manage and lead people in general. So, if we look at all the problems in the world right now, like wars, violence, corruption, greed, misogyny, racism, all that division energy that's kind of out there right now, and if we were to blame that all on one thing, we're going to blame that all on authoritarianism. Some people can say, well, it's patriarchy and it's the way, we've been managing patriarchal systems just don't work anymore. And I agree. But if you look at what is the basis of even patriarchy, it is a hierarchical power structure that has control over the people at the bottom while there's a boss at the top. And that is authoritarian leadership. And so authoritarian leadership, no matter where it's showing up in our world right now, it doesn't work anymore. And we're seeing kind of the backlash of that as people are fed up with being led in a way that is controlling or micromanaging from people at the top that clearly are not healthy or do not have our best interests at heart. So the main issue with authoritarianism and why it doesn't work anymore is we are kind of moving into this new way of being because we are realizing that compassion and empathy, we are growing to be a little more compassionate. We're growing to be a little more empathetic. And those old bullying ways of leading don't work anymore. We want more community. We're tired of the division. We're tired of the fighting. So the problem with authoritarianism is it promotes separation. That is the biggest issue with anything you want to call it, whether it's a hierarchy, whether it's authoritarianism, whether we say it's the patriarchy, right? It's the promotion of separation, and that is actually the biggest problem. So we cannot continue to lead this way. And, people are going to try, but it's just not going to work anymore. So what do we do instead? And so the opposite of authoritarianism isn't permissiveness, because that's what a lot of people think, that if we don't use authoritarianism and we don't try to control and keep everybody under control underneath us, whether that's in a classroom, whether that's in a home, whether that's in a workplace or a government, doesn't matter. If we actually look at the opposite of authoritarianism and having that control, it isn't permissiveness. We think, well, if we let go of control, then we're going to have permissive, and then the people on the bottom are going to be, fighting the people taking control, and there would be no control. No. Permissiveness is also still a hierarchical structure where we have children or members or employees or whatever it is, students, now at the top of the hierarchy, where the leader is at the bottom, and we let the members kind of run over everything and there's no leadership. So we don't want a permissive style of leadership either. That's not the opposite of authoritarianism, actually. What the opposite is, what I call leading with a we. It's with togetherness, cooperation, collaboration, valuing community, valuing everyone in that community equally. It includes inclusion, supporting each other, encouragement, connection, belonging, and it also has boundaries. We have boundaries. We have to have that. There is a balance there. But if we put everybody together in this idea of we're all in this together, let's do what we can to make our society better, to make our classroom better, to make our home better. Let's work together. That is actually the future. So How do we do that? And we're going to have trouble. It's a transition. It's really hard to go from authoritarianism into something that's not authoritarianism. So it's going to take some practice getting there, but I promise you, I believe that it is possible. And so today, what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to give you a little bit more information about authoritarianism in case you haven't really researched it or studied it or read a lot about it, what it is and why it doesn't work anymore. And then we're going to talk about how togetherness is actually the future way of we need to be leading each other. And we're going to talk about what that looks like so that we're not scared of letting go of authoritarianism. It's just not working anymore. We've got to move along. So I want to talk about how to healthfully have leadership in our world so that it works for everybody. It's beneficial for the leaders, and it's also beneficial for all the members in that society or that group, whether it's students in the classroom or the children at home. So let's go ahead and dive into how authoritarianism is out and togetherness is in. So let's first dive into authoritarianism, all about what it is and then why it's harmful. Because, like I said, authoritarianism is harmful and it is also an ineffective way to lead. It doesn't really work. It might appear to work, but under the surface, it's not actually a very effective way to lead. So, what is authoritarianism and why is it harmful? So, authoritarianism is a hierarchical power structure that causes separation, which is really the biggest problem with it. So, authoritarian leaders, if you think of a hierarchy, right, we have the boss at the very top who takes full control over the people here at the bottom. There's a lot of different varieties of that kind of structure over the centuries and centuries we've had authoritarianism in charge, but pretty much it is always one boss, very small amount of people at the very top, taking full control of the people there at the bottom. They tend to micromanage those people as a form of control. They take no input from anybody below them. They don't want to listen because they are the ones that know all. They know all, and if you just listen to me and do what I say, then all will be well. You will be successful. You will be good. Everything, you will get to some good places in the world. You will go where you want to go. Just listen to me. So they expect obedience in return. They respond to that obedience with either rewards. You're doing what I want you to do, so here's a reward for you so you keep doing what I want you to do, or more commonly, punishments. Right? You're not doing what I want you to do, so I'm going to punish you, humiliate you, shame you, kick you out of society in some way if you do not do what me here at the top says that you should do. They value themselves more than those under them. So there's no equal value. The people under them, they look down upon. They do not value them. Because of that creates that separation. So it becomes a me versus them mentality. So the person in charge kind of looks at it like, ooh, I got to look out for me versus these people here. They're against me and I've got to protect myself at all cost. This causes division. And because they're not valuing the people, they don't meet people's needs. When we don't meet people's needs, misbehavior actually perpetuates, right? So that negative behavior is going to get worse, not better. Authoritarianism, things like punishment, those kinds of harmful ways of leading lead to other misbehaviors. Yes, sure, at first it may look like someone is complying because they want their reward or they're scared of the punishment, but there's no true cooperation, right? What'll happen is those people will feel really bad because of the way they're treated. And eventually, once they're tired of complying, they're going to start maybe rebelling. You may see some manipulation, some lying, cheating, right? They may get angry and fight back. So all of the negative effects of authoritarianism, again, they may comply for this one thing, but eventually underneath it all, you're going to see all these other negative behaviors, which is exactly what we are seeing right now. Authoritarianism eventually does not last. People get tired of complying, and they see that the compliance actually really doesn't get them where they want to be, as their leaders have promised them, right? So that goes into, then why isn't it working anymore? It's not working because as soon as people lose trust in their leaders, forget it. They don't feel that that person has their best interest at heart. They stop listening and wanting to do it, whatever it is that leader says. And that's kind of where we're seeing it. We're seeing it almost in all of our structures. We're seeing it in the police force right now. We've lost some trust in those leaders. We've lost trust in our government. We've lost trust in our religious leaders. Unfortunately, even teachers have lost trust in their school administrators or the people running the schools. Classrooms that are out of control usually have lost trust in their teachers. When you have children in a family who are rebelling and manipulating and fighting back, usually they have lost that connection and trust with their parents as well. So it's just this breakdown, this separation, and we just lose trust in those leaders, and we don't want to listen to them anymore. So we have learned that they don't have our best interests at heart, and that obeying no longer is beneficial. Not only is it not beneficial, it's most of the time not very safe and can actually be harmful in many situations. So we don't want to obey anymore. We figured out that that's not good for us. So because of this, we no longer view those people at the top, whether it's they have a lot of power, they have a lot of wealth. Those are the two big things that have been really making the person the boss. We don't view them as better anymore. Now we're seeing through the facades, and we're seeing that actually you are not really great people. Why am I listening to what you're telling me to do when you're not really a great person? Another reason I think that it's not working anymore is because we are more educated about bullying. I guess because I was a teacher, starting in the year 2000, and I saw bullying prevention kick off in the early 2000s, where we spoke a lot about what bullying is and tried to understand it. And honestly, so this millennial generation and younger has had some kind of discussion about what bullying is. And then they look at the leaders around the world right now and they see that as bullying. They're, being mean, harsh, punishing, right? And they don't want to follow that. They don't want to do that anymore. So I feel like authoritarianism is also dying because we just don't want any more bullying. And that's the way authoritarianism shows up. These younger generations too that have more knowledge about bullying also learned that, hey, if we band together and work together, that we actually have more power together than we do when we're separate. So that togetherness is, they see that that's strong. That's a way to fight that bully, is actually that togetherness. The problem with it is that we fear permissiveness. I saw this in the classroom a lot, as with other fellow teachers. I've seen it with parents as well. There's a fear that if I don't do authoritarianism, if I don't control or punish or expect obedience and compliance, then the children will run amok. We'll have no control. They'll control me. It'll be chaos and anarchy and whatever. And that's because we fear permissive. We think that the opposite of authoritarianism is permissiveness, but it is not. As I said at the beginning, permissiveness is also a hierarchy where the members of the group are at the top of the hierarchy and they are ruling the leaders at the bottom. So we don't want that either. Permissiveness in parents, for instance, if you have the children being the boss and the parents being the members of the family instead, then the parents get burnt out. They end up giving up all of their needs. It doesn't work either. So we know permissiveness is not going to work, and that's actually not the opposite, because it is still a hierarchical power structure. So what do we do instead? Leadership that meets our needs, right? Meets its members' needs and brings everyone together. That is the way of the future. And it is possible to do. It is possible to have a balance. So where we don't have the people at the bottom taking over, we don't have the people at the top taking over, it is more of a circle. So let's go ahead and get into that next. How are we going to do togetherness effectively? So togetherness is the future. We've got to embrace a new way to lead. Authoritarianism is not working anymore. But how do we do togetherness without losing control, right? That sounds scary for somebody who's used to being in charge and in control and having authority. Is, oh, I don't know, if I give too much power to everybody else in the group, they could run over me and things like that. And that is not the experience that I have had in the classroom. So I'm going to share with you what I call balanced leadership. And I speak about balanced leadership in my parenting book that's coming out this year. I used it in the classroom. I've used it with my son. And I really believe that this style of leadership can be used in pretty much any arena. So I'm going to go over what that looks like. And then as I'm talking, start to imagine that in your homes, in the classrooms, in political systems, and see if you feel like you can see where that would fall in and how that would work. So balanced leadership, instead of being a triangle, right? Instead of being a hierarchy, it is more of a circular structure. There is still a leader that's in charge, but they're kind of like, I imagine it like sitting around a conference table. There's a leader at the head of that conference table, but everybody is on equal everybody is equally valuable that sits around that conference table, and they have a voice, and they get to give their opinions. Now, the head of the table still makes the final decision because they have everyone's best interest at heart, but they are not bossing or micromanaging. So the difference, a great phrase that I love to use to really easily differentiate between authoritarian boss and a balanced leader, is authoritarians would use the phrase, do this. Authoritarians would come into a group and just tell everybody what to do. But a balanced leader is going to come into a group and say, let's do this. It's going to be inclusive. It's like, let's do this. How do we figure this out? What do we need to do? As the leader, that person is still going to make the final call because they're looking out for the whole group. What is keeping everyone's best interest at heart? What are the health and safety things I need to keep in mind for the group? And what I need to make sure I'm also maintaining everyone's rights and freedoms. A leader that views everyone as equally valuable. A balanced leader also provides a balance of needs. Remember, when our needs are met, we feel good. And when we feel good, we have good behavior. We want to collaborate. We want to work together because our needs are met. We feel good. When our needs are not met is when we can feel bad, and then we can have negative behavior, unhealthy choices, all of those things. So it's really important that this leader knows how to meet the needs of the people in the group. Belonging is our number one need. So belonging promotes togetherness and teamwork so that everyone in the group feels connected, respected, and encouraged. So belonging is one category of needs that I have found over the years that is our most important. Belonging is a survival skill. We know that if we belong, then we will have our needs met. So belonging is our number one need. In fact, they found that rejection shows up in the brain as though someone poured hot coffee on our arm. That is how harmful rejection is, which again goes back to why authoritarianism is so harmful, because it causes that separation or rejection. So instead, we want that inclusiveness. We want to make them feel connected, respected, and encouraged. So the second category of needs, just as equally valuable, are boundaries. It is really important that that leader keeps everybody's best interest at heart, right? They need to protect the health and safety of the group while also maintaining everyone's rights and freedoms. Boundaries should be clearly established, kindly enforced, but also respectfully reciprocated. The people in the group also should be able to have boundaries that the leader respects in a fair way. So finding the right balance of providing the belonging and providing the boundaries may be difficult because we have had literally centuries, probably thousands. We could probably go back to the beginning of patriarchy, 10,000 years ago or so. So we've had thousands and thousands of years of an imbalanced leadership. So it may be tricky to find that right balance, but it is possible. I think the more and more we keep stepping up, even in our small places, this is why I'm passionate about changing the way we parent. That's our first entrance into the world. So if parents are leading with a we, if parents are leading with togetherness and parenting that way, those children will then grow up with that model and then can bring that out into the world, and it can spread into our classrooms and our schools and our businesses and our governments, right? So we just need to start moving towards that togetherness. And it may be tricky, it may be a little messy at first, but it is absolutely possible. And I know it's possible because it's how I ran my classroom. And I know you might think, oh, a classroom, that's easy. If you've never run a classroom, you may not know how challenging that actually could be. But I used to be the teacher that used authoritarianism. I stood at the front and I bossed and I got very, serious. I used punishments and rewards and, yelled and lectured and all of these things. And it just didn't work. We were miserable. The kids would rebel. They would be sneaky. They'd talk back. We had all kinds of misbehavior. They would fight within each other. It just didn't work. As soon as I dropped that authoritarianism, that hierarchy, I literally would sit on the floor with them and have them come over and sit with me. And I would say, what is going on? Let's talk. This doesn't feel good. I don't like coming to school. You're frustrated while you're in the classroom. Behavior is tanking. What do we need to do? And they would just open up, and they were so excited to have a voice that we would start problem solving. Well, they would start sharing with me, here's all these problems, and we'd work together to solve that together. And when we did that, they felt valuable. They came up with ideas, so they wanted to do their ideas. So it was great for motivation. And I really firmly believe the classroom is kind of like a mini society. So if I can do this in the classroom for 18 years, we can definitely use it in other systems. I truly believe that is possible even in our government. So start looking for balanced leaders. There are some out there. There are some amazing leaders that are starting to emerge because they're sick of it too. So look around. Is there and maybe there's some people from the past. I'm not real great with history, but there may be some good leaders from the past who also led with that we, right? They used togetherness. Is there anyone from the past who really embodies togetherness and balanced leadership? How about now? Is there anyone currently that you see valuing togetherness and getting everybody together with the let's do this kind of idea of leading? These people are the role models we need going forward. So keep your eyes out for them because they're really going to be the future of leadership as we know it. The exciting thing is you don't have to wait for the world to change in order to start leading this way. You can take this style and use it in your classroom if you're a teacher, and your home if you're a parent, in your business with your employees. So this style of leadership and those needs works with everyone. I even see that it works with me in my relationship with my husband. So it's not going to hurt anyone to meet everyone's needs and give a balance of belonging and boundaries. It works really well, and it's such a simple way to get ourselves really back on track and away from authoritarianism. So I'm going to give you a few homework prompts this week to take home and think about as far as how to bring togetherness more into your own life. So as always, I have some homework just to help you reflect on the topic and see how you can help apply that in your own life. So the main question for homework this week is how can you bring more balanced leadership and togetherness into your home or your classroom, right? How can you lead with that let's do this mindset? So number one, how do you promote belonging through a team mindset, right? How can you change it from me versus them to us versus the problem? How can you value your children's opinions? Ensure they feel connected, respected, and encouraged. So it's really important that our children feel that you validate them, that you don't judge them, that you accept them just as they are. You encourage them to go after their dreams and the things that are important to them. And then you make sure that they're authentically feel connected to you. You give them eye contact. You pay attention. You're interested in what they're interested in. And they feel respected. They feel that you value what they have to say, and you include them in a lot of parental decisions. So belonging, again, is our number one, and you can start promoting that very easily by just making sure they feel connected, respected, encouraged, and then creating that team mindset when there's a problem in the family. Instead of you fighting with them about homework, talk to them. You know what? Homework seems to be a problem, and I hate fighting with you about it. How can we work together to solve this homework issue? Morning routine is usually also a really big issue. The morning routine's not working. I'm having to yell at you 4 or 5 times to get out of bed, and then you're miserable and you're, snarky with me and whatever. How can we work together to make morning routine better? And so many times, just getting them on the same page as you, they're much more willing to improve how they are in that situation just because they feel like you're on their side. So how can you promote that belonging is number one. And number two, how can you also provide boundaries? Your boundaries in the family should maintain everyone's health and safety, right? You have to be that leader in the family. You have to oversee the whole group. And you have to look, how can I make sure that this group's health and safety? And if you can do a mix of both of those things really well and just come together in a let's do this, it's going to change the dynamic of your home. I am telling you, it switched on a dime when I did this with my students in the classroom, and it felt so good. I felt good coming into the classroom. They felt good coming to school. It just elevated everybody up into, we're going to do this. We're going to solve this classroom situation together. We're going to learn to the best of our ability. We're going to kill it this year, So they rise to that level as well. So I know if I can do it in the classroom, you can do it in your homes. And I truly believe that it is the way of the future with all of the other arenas in our society today. If you would like more information about these needs, connection, respect, encouragement, and then boundaries being established, enforced, and reciprocated, you can go back to my prior episodes. I talk a lot about them in those first few episodes. And that'll give you a little sense of what the needs are and how to know if they're missing, if your child is missing, which need they're missing. And if you are listening to this on Apple, please don't forget that you can also watch this on YouTube. I also have a worksheet attached for those of you that are listening and not watching. So please go ahead, go to that. My website has a tab for Our Homeroom Podcast where all of my resource sheets are listed there, by podcast. If you would like help with this personally, if you would like to try to do this in your families, but you're really not sure how to do it the best, you see that your children are missing some needs and you're not sure what they are, whether you're a teacher or a parent, I can help you with managing all of that behavior and making sure everybody feels good, making sure that you're doing that balanced leadership. So please reach out to me. My email is kristentame@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, kristentame.com. I've got a bunch of information there. I'd love to hear from you. Even if you want to just email me and tell me what's going on, I would love to hear from you. So I hope you have a great rest of your February, and I will be back in March. Thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll see you next month.